Good morning. This is Jason Dean coming live at you again for another Film Fanatic show. It is 10:38, the last day of March, March 31st. Hard to believe. So I hope everyone's doing good. I am going to go to the movies on Friday. Made a date with my bros. We've been trying to go to the movies again. Actually, for the last couple of weeks, and it's been a little bit tough with people's schedules and whatnot. But anyway, we're going to go see the new Ryan Gosling movie, Project Hail Mary. I've heard a lot of good things about this movie. This movie was on my radar for a while, and I thought it looked pretty good. It was funny. My first reaction to the trailer was, it looks really good. I love Ryan Gosling. I love science fiction, so I was like, okay, this could be cool. I believe that this story is originally by the same writer who wrote The Martian, I think the novel. And that movie's pretty good, too. So I was intrigued. I kind of thought that the movie reminded me of, like, I don't know, well, something like E.T. It looked really wholesome and family friendly, which is, hey, there's nothing wrong with that. But I was kind of hoping or craving for something that had a little bit more grit to it, a little bit maybe more adult oriented kind of a thing. But I've heard really good things about this movie, and I definitely think it's definitely a movie to experience in the theater. So I'm excited to see it. I'm gonna go see it on Friday, and I'll definitely do a review for it after I see it, like I usually do. So yeah. Anyway, I've been back to watching some movies. I went to Goodwill on Sunday. I haven't actually been to Goodwill in years. The Goodwill in Rockland is kind of my second favorite place to buy movies. Oh, obviously, well, it's the same case too with Bull Moose, which is my absolute favorite place. They have a lot of used movies and things like that, and new releases. The boutique label stuff that they carry is pretty out of control. It's outrageous. And I kind of go back and forth, like I've described this weird thing that I do, where when I go to Bull Moose, I typically I try to seek out, all of the best like grindhouse movies that I can find, the real sleazy, low budget films that I really love. Try to really focus on buying those kinds of movies. And then when I go to Goodwill in Rockland, and it's been a while since I've been there, I typically buy, whatever I can find that looks really cool, obviously. But they're typically more movies in the kind of the, normal movies, if you will, bigger budget movies. I don't really buy, I'm trying not to, and again, it's a funny thing because I don't, it's not that I hate Hollywood movies. It's not that I like movies with big budgets, because that sounds kind of asinine. But I initially, or the real reasons I love film, is just I want to escape for a couple hours and have a good time. But it doesn't. I try not to have any hang-ups about the genre or the budget behind the movie. I like good storytelling. That's really it. So, but I tend to lean towards the real low budget, kind of sleazy, trashy exploitation, because to me it always takes me out of the ordinary state of mind really quick, and it's fun as hell, and I just have a really good time in that genre more than any other genre. It's a genre I've always loved, but I go back and forth, like where I was like, I'm just gonna focus. Being that I'm a collector of movies and I have a pretty big collection of movies, I was I kind of go through this weird thing of like a weird crossroads where I'm like, I think I'm gonna stop buying big budget Hollywood films and I'm just gonna buy exploitation movies and real low budget kind of trash movies because realistically when I'm home and as of late the last handful of years, that's pretty much what I do as far as buying movies. That's pretty much all I buy. And then when I'm home, that's pretty much all I watch. I love watching crap, and so it's great. But at the same time, I do love bigger budget Hollywood films. I don't really try not to discriminate. It's like a movie. A good movie is a good movie. I don't really, a bad movie is a bad movie. So I don't really try not to have too many hangups about it. But I do go back and forth sometimes with that. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna make that shift because shit's expensive. We live in very strange times and things are very expensive on top of that. So trying to like, you know, figure out the financial things of like what I want to focus when I do have money, what I want to focus that on. So, the other thing is, I typically stopped, for the most part, have stopped buying DVDs, and I've definitely stopped buying VHSs. But every now and then, I come across DVDs, especially, and it only usually happens when I go to Goodwill in Rockland. I used to go there quite a bit. And as far as like bigger Hollywood films, I've gotten a shit ton of movies there. I don't go there as much, mostly Blu-rays. Like, for example, I've completed most of my collection as far as Marvel movies that I really, really love. So I have pretty much all of the films in the MCU that I really, really love. And I've gotten all of those at Goodwill because they sell movies really, really cheap. Sometimes this past Sunday, they had a few Blu-rays, a few decent things. I did end up buying a few movies. So that's today's show is going to be on one of the movies that I bought. And every now and then, probably it was probably in the fall. Really, it was a while ago of last year. Now I bought some DVDs. Occasionally I buy DVDs, but I try. That's one thing I'm trying not to do because I've definitely along the way as I've bought movies, and it's a thing that a lot of collectors run into, of course, and it's a reason for a lot of people why they don't buy physical media or collect them because you run out of space pretty quickly. And I've run out of space a few times. I ran out of space pretty much just recently, but I have a little bit. I have this big cabinet that I'm gonna probably use for storage for films that I kind of came across that I don't really use that much. But that's a thing that I run up against. So, and overall, because I just love the quality of really good Blu-rays, I haven't made the transition or leap into buying 4K. I don't think I'm going to at this point. I would have to buy a new TV and probably upgrade, buy even more versions of the same films that I have, because that would mean I've used this as an example is where if I made that leap into 4K, because I know 4K is really great, and for some movies it's absolutely amazing. But that would mean, for example, I would have like the fifth copy of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and it's like, okay, I need help if that happens. It's a little bit overkill, but I understand, and I've heard some mixed things about 4K, where some folks have said it's not necessarily that much of a difference. That they are happy with their really good high end Blu-ray version of that particular film. But that being said, I've also heard that some movies do look significantly better or more alive on 4K. So, but I'm pretty happy. I'm pretty happy with my collection as far as my Blu-rays. Some of the DVDs that I have, I still do watch DVDs here and there. But I did buy a DVD on Sunday. And I had heard about this movie. Well, I should say, this was a movie that was a massive part of my childhood. And I fairly recently saw some coverage of this movie because it just got a 4K release. One of my favorite YouTube guys, who mostly focuses on horror movies, he does tend to lean more on the low budget horror exploitation slasher genre. He's a massive slasher guy. Pizzawell, he's a really awesome guy, really awesome YouTuber. I watch him pretty often, pretty regularly, but he had just done a show on this movie. And so when I went to, he had just bought the 4K version of this film, and I can't remember if it was Shout Factory or what boutique label that put it out. But he had just given a review of the 4K, and it was like, wow, okay, I need to see this movie. And it's been years, and I remember it brought back this big rush of nostalgia for me because this was a movie I used to watch all the time as a kid. It was one of my favorite action movies. And usually when Pizzawell does a review of a 4K or just a movie in general, especially if he gets like a newer edition of a movie, he really goes in depth. He'll talk about all of the special features that usually that movie comes with and the whole thing, and it's super cool, super super cool. So again, like I said, I try to stay away from buying DVDs just because of the space. But I do have a mixture of. At the end of the day, most, even though I am a big time Blu-ray collector now, and that's the majority. That's what makes up the majority of movies that I buy. Especially in the last 5 years, three to 5 years. That's that's mostly what I buy now, and my Blu-ray collection has gotten pretty big, and I'm pretty happy with it. And it's still growing. But since I started getting really into buying movies many, many, many years ago, I still have more. At the end of the day, I still have more DVDs than Blu-rays, but that's changing. I have made a lot of upgrades to DVD. That's one thing that I try to do is when I get, like a DVD, for instance, that I've had for years. If it's a movie that I really love, I will snag up a Blu-ray copy of that if I can, and whatnot. I have a mixture of DVDs as far as like real standard basic ones that are okay, decent quality, and I've bought those in my travel because they're just really really cheap and they're usually okay, decent. But then I have some really good quality DVDs that are actually really high quality. So it does vary. It does vary quite a bit with DVDs and Blu-rays sometimes. Overall, if you get a really good quality Blu-ray though, it's pretty awesome. So anyway, I was at Goodwill on Sunday and I came across this movie that again I fucking love this movie so much, and I've watched it twice already since I've gotten it, and that is Sylvester Stallone's Cobra. This movie has got to be one of the most badass movies ever made. It was put out by Canon. That's one of my favorite companies from the 80s. Canon put out all kinds of trashy, really low budget action movies. I kind of feel like the Canon movies are, the or like that department of the Canon films, they are kind of like the exploitation versions of great American action movies. Super cool, super bad, super terrible. Totally the case of when something is so bad, it's good. And I feel like Canon was the epitome of that, especially in the early '80s, the whole decade of the '80s. I mean, they just put out so many trashy, crappy action movies, and I just love. I mean, most notably, the first few movies that I remember coming across or style of movies that they were putting out. Canon was the all of the ninja movies, starring Sho Kosugi, and also action stars like Michael Dudikoff. Just tremendous. But Canon also put out this gem of a movie, and that is Cobra, starring Sylvester Stallone. This movie is just so badass. I love this movie to death. I watched it twice already, and I just got it on Sunday. It came out in 1986. I kind of feel like this is a quintessential action movie. This was a movie as a kid that I would watch over and over and over again. And I just absolutely love this movie. Watching it now in 2026, and this came out in 1986, it's wild. This movie totally holds up. It's so goddamn entertaining. I forgot how dark this movie is. I also forgot how violent this movie is. It's got one of the most insanely high body counts I've ever seen in an action movie. And again, it's super cheesy. It's got so many great classic Sylvester Stallone one-liners. He actually wrote this screenplay as well. He also had a brief affair where with Bridget Nielsen, who is the star, also the star of this movie. They were romantically involved, and she is also the lead in this movie. And they actually have a really cool chemistry on the screen. This movie is also really funny. There's a lot of really great comedic moments in this movie. It does have some levity to it. And I do feel like it's Cobra and it's super cheesy action, but I do feel like this movie has a little bit of depth to it. Like I think there is a chemistry. And when I say depth, I don't mean it like, oh, it's like this emotional experience, in the way of it's changing my life. Well, it has changed my life or is changing my life. But I mean in a way of like there's actually a little bit of depth to the chemistry of the characters. Yeah, it's got some of the best, some of the cheesiest, but some of the most iconic one-liners by Sylvester Stallone, of course, that are just iconic and they're hilarious and so incredibly funny. But I think when it comes to the characters, actually in the story, there is some real cool chemistry. I actually think, wow, okay, there's actually some quality here aside from the gratuitous violence and brutality, which is why I love this movie first and foremost. But I remember seeing this movie all the time as a kid, but I think it totally holds up. It totally holds up. I actually enjoyed it more because I feel like those little elements, like I said, with the chemistry, the characters, as a kid, I never picked up on that stuff, and I didn't really care about that stuff. But this movie has a little bit more of a pull, a little bit more depth than I thought. But as far as action goes, like it just totally kicks ass. I mean, other than maybe, another Sylvester Stallone movie I absolutely love, which I did. I think I did get an upgrade of that a couple of years ago on Blu-ray. Of course, First Blood, amazing movie. And then the film that he directed, Sylvester Stallone, where which was I think it was called Rambo, and it came out maybe like 10 years ago, and it was kind of like a sequel to the Rambo or First Blood franchise, and that movie is super badass. That movie is just absolutely incredible. It's one of the best action movies ever made. Super gory, but Cobra, I feel like is one of, when you look at the '80s and the prime time, of Sylvester Stallone's career, I feel like Cobra is easily one of the best and one of the most entertaining. The other thing too about this movie is I forgot how super dark this movie is and how brutal this movie is. It's got, realistically, when you look at the body count, it's got one of the highest fucking body counts I've ever seen in a movie. It's insane. There's so much carnage in this movie. But at the same time, this movie has got to be one of the most entertaining movies, and it's just so fun. It's got so many great little tropes. The character of Cobra is just so badass. He's got the little Cobra logo on his gun. And it's just got so many iconic lines and great scenes over and over again. And the other thing about this movie is the pacing. This movie does not let up. From the minute you put this movie in, it is full bore, full on action, and it's a great balance. It's not like, overkill, like as far as where there's so much action where it can kind of become, it puts you in this dizzy, you know, discombob discombobulated state where it's kind of a blur. It's like every action sequence really means something, but the pacing of it is so great because there's very little downtime, but yet you're on this crazy train ride the whole way. Sometimes I think with newer action movies or modern action films, they do, in between the action sequences, it can be Snoresville. It can be super slow. That was one of the problems I had with the last and the final. I did like it, and there are some sequences in that movie that are just spectacular. But I did think that movie dragged ass and was really, really slow at times where it was too slow. And that was the last Mission Impossible movie that came out, which was good, but it also dragged ass. It was super long. Anyway, all of those movies are long, but the pacing was really weird, and there were a lot of areas in the story where the segments or the whole pace of the movie just slowed down, and it was super mellow to the point of where it kind of took me out of the movie, and then it would rev up again, and it does have a couple of sequences in it that are just spectacular, but it does have this thing with issues for me with pacing. But with Cobra, it's a perfect balance because it's so entertaining. And again, there are action movies out there where it's, there might be so much that it can be, it loses its effect because there's like an overabundance of it, or it's maybe so over the top, and that can be really fun depending on the context. But it also can be, mind numbing, and you kind of lose, that emotional pull to it because it's something that's, done too much. But with Cobra, the editing for this movie is just, I really feel like as far as an action movie goes, it's perfect. It just pulls you in right away, and it's just got this incredible pace. It's got some of the best action sequences. I think it's one of the best Stallone movies ever made. And again, this was in the 80s, 1986, right in the kind of the prime time of action. And this is a canon film because so it's very like low budget. It's got a lot of cheese throughout the whole movie. It's definitely like this corny kind of exploitation movie at the same time. And that's why I love canon films when it comes to action, and all of the great ninja movies, all of the great classic action movies they put out in the 80s, because they were a very small like exploitation company making these pumping out these action movies left and right. And when you look at the more bigger budget action movies that came out, or during that time, like they have a bigger production value, bigger name actors, the scripts are a little bit better, but there's something so cheesy and ridiculous about the canon movies that are just, they were the best. When it comes to action movies, they definitely put out my, pretty much my favorite movies. I have quite a few of the canon films. American Ninja, I do have, which is probably my favorite. Ninja 3: The Domination. I have a handful of other films too from canon that are just amazing. And I forgot when I put in Cobra the other night when I watched it the first time. I was like, oh shit, I forgot that this is a canon production. I was like, oh yeah, this is great. One of their most notorious films was the final, I think it was Superman 4, The Quest for Peace, which is such a piece of garbage, but it's amazing. And Canon released that film, and it's so terrible, but again, it's absolutely epic at the same time. So, yeah, I want to really continue. I definitely want to get an upgrade Definitely want to get this on Blu-ray. But the quality of this DVD is really good. There's not really any special features on here. I think there's like a commentary track, but the quality of this is really great. And I got this for, what did I pay? $4, which is pretty good. Could have been a little bit cheaper, but I'm really happy with this quality with this DVD. It's really great. Definitely would be amazing on Blu-ray. I heard through, like I said before, Pizzowell, who is a YouTube guy that I watch, who I really love, did a review of Cobra on 4K, and he talked about the same kind of nostalgic, that deep tie and connection to growing up watching this movie and just being so in love with this film. And he talked a lot about the different ways he saw this movie. Watching it on cable late at night, and then seeing it on VHS a bunch of times, and then eventually DVD. And he said the 4K transfer was absolutely spectacular. But again, this is a DVD. I try to stay away from buying DVDs, obviously, mainly because Blu-rays are the way to go. And the other issue is running out of space. But totally worth it. Totally worth it. Absolutely love this film. What a great cast as well. Besides, obviously, Sylvester Stallone and Brigitte Nielsen. Really just wonderful. But again, the cast for this film is just awesome. Brian Thompson plays the Night Slasher. The Night Slasher is this kind of new this where they're essentially this cult that is trying to kill all of the police and take over the city and take over the world. They are this crazed group of psychopaths. And the other thing, and I have to say, Brian Thompson as the lead villain in this movie, he has got to be one of the most badass villains of all time in action movies, period. He has this signature blade or knife that he uses that has all of these daggers and sharp things that come out of the blade. It's just so damn iconic, and it's one of the coolest like designs. I think his character as the night slasher is one of the coolest, well, just the coolest designs. He wears like this pantyhose stocking thing over his head. He is such a frightening character in this movie, truly menacing. And the whole cult of these crazy lunatics that follow him and that kill for him are just also badass. The other thing that's really cool that is very, very different, and it's also because it's a Stallone movie, this movie has big time slasher and horror elements. And I forgot about that because it's been, I mean, the last time I saw Cobra, I couldn't even tell you. I mean, probably the last time I saw this movie was like when I was in high school or maybe college age. But I remember during that time, I used to see it. I mean, I probably saw it 30 times. It was always on. It's one of those movies that, if I come home from school or, in high school or, or what have you. We had like HBO back then, Cinemax, USA Up All Night was another really great network that would show a lot of real cheesy movies all the time, a lot of exploitation movies. USA Up All Night, I think, was the actual show, a series that they would do on, I think it was either Friday or Saturday nights, and they do like a movie marathon of really cheesy movies, a lot of exploitation, real low budget 80s movies, action movies, and definitely Cobra was one of those movies. And then I remember also renting Cobra all the time on VHS at the time. But then, many, many years later, I haven't seen this movie since then. So it was like, wow, like I forgot how great this movie is. But the other thing, but the main thing was watching it again after it being so many years in between was this is like kind of a horror movie and it's kind of a slasher movie as well, and it's a full throttle action movie. So it's got, all of these great elements. It's actually very suspenseful. There's some really great chase scenes and action set pieces that are just awesome. And it has elements of horror and definitely with the night slasher, very much a slasher movie in a lot of ways too, which is like, wow, okay, I forgot about that. And I was like, this is an extra bonus because, the slasher genre is my favorite. And I forgot about those elements. And, with Sylvester Stallone's career, especially in the 80s to fairly recently, but especially, in the 80s and, you know, early 80s through the 90s when he was, cranking out one killer movie after another, especially with the Rambo or First Blood series. I can't really think of other movies. I mean, there might be one or two out there, but I can't, off the top of my head, I can't think of any other movies that he did that had that were horror films or movies that had a big horror kind of vibe to them and or a slasher vibe to them. They were pretty much just, balls to the wall action movies for the most part. So this was like really, I do think that this was a very different kind of genre film for Sylvester Stallone back then. And I forgot too that he wrote this movie as well. And he did a great job. I mean, it's super cheesy, but it totally works. Totally delivers. It's as entertaining as fuck. I definitely want to get this on a Blu-ray. The music is really cool as well. It was directed by George P. Cosmatos. The This movie, when Cobra came out, I guess it was a big box office hit, but it was totally destroyed by the critics of the time. A lot of critics just said that this was like just pure trash, basically, which it is. But it makes it such a great film. But it went on to become a pretty huge cult classic as far as lovers of 80s action films, and it's easily one of the best of the 80s, if not the best. It's kind of the most. I kind of feel like Cobra is like the quintessential, you know, action movie from the 80s. It's just got everything that you want, at least everything that I want, everything you love in an action movie, with a lot of nostalgia tied to it. And it's not a thing of. Sometimes I think, when you think of the word, think of the term nostalgia when you're tied to something because of nostalgia, like that's a normal thing. But sometimes I think it can be this thing of where a person can be so drawn to something because it's so embedded in their memory, because it's this nostalgic thing that they first experienced it or saw it when, at a certain time in their life, especially if they were a kid. And sometimes I think that can like get in the way of almost hinder your experience in the long term, where you can kind of be in this state of denial of like, wow, this doesn't actually, and you watch it later on or experience that piece of art later on in life, and it really doesn't hold up. It really doesn't, carry anything, and it doesn't age well because you're kind of like, oh, I love this movie so much when I was 8 or 9 years old, that, or I love this album so much when I was 8 or 9 years old. It doesn't matter. And then when you actually try to experience it again, it's like, huh, okay. But then you kind of go back and forth about, well, I do love this movie, but it doesn't, or this album, but it doesn't really connect with you. And some things don't age well. But overall, I think that nostalgia for me is a massive part of this movie. But I think it still really holds up, and it's such a kick-ass movie. I definitely cannot wait to get this on Blu-ray. It's a fantastic movie. Again, there's the cast is really great. Andrew Robinson is also in this film, a great character actor. He was in the great Clint Eastwood movie. Um, oh, he was a great actor. He's still around too. He was also in the first Hellraiser movie. Michael Robinson, so great. Michael Robinson played the head villain in the Dirty Harry film by Clint Eastwood. Such a great movie. Yeah, such an awesome movie. But he plays a police officer in this, and he's like kind of this total jerk to Sylvester Stallone's character Cobra. But he's great. He's such a great character actor. Also, Rennie Satoru is also, or I should say, Rennie Satoni, who is Cobra's partner in this film, and they have great chemistry. There's a lot of great kind of comedic moments between their two characters in the movie. It's really funny. And again, a lot of that stuff I didn't pick up on when I was, 8 or 9 years old when I saw this movie, 30 times. And it does have cool, like, it's got some cool levity. And again, like I said before, at the time of this movie, Sylvester Stallone and Brigitte Nielsen became a romantic couple. So, and they dated for, I guess, a handful of years. But you can really see that there is a chemistry with them on this, in this movie. In this story, they basically fall in love, and you really can kind of feel that on the big screen. It's pretty cool. Another great character actor in this is Art LaFleur. He plays the captain. It's just great. Yeah, 1986. This movie totally fucking rules. It's the best. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.